Coding sounds like something unemployed kids do all day. Don't overestimate your worth. My dad said that, loud and clear, in a room full of international investors. It was supposed to be my moment the first time I showcased the asset management software I'd spent 3 years building. But instead, he laughed it off, called it just a game. What he didn't mention, I had invested over $1.2 million of my own money into his luxury real estate project and provided the entire system running behind it for free. If you've ever given your all to someone who never saw your worth, stick around, because this is where everything started to fall apart and then rise again. My dad, Richard, built his empire from the ground up, a ruthless real estate mogul who respected only two things: money and control. He wasn't a nurturing father, he was a strategist, one who expected perfection and repaid success with silence. So, when I chose tech over traditional business, he scoffed. You can build apps. I build actual money. I didn't argue. I just worked harder. I founded a company that developed custom software to help large businesses manage their internal operations. It wasn't flashy, but it worked. Clients trusted me. Revenue came in. When my dad asked if I could help his next big real estate project, I said yes without hesitation. I invested real money. I offered my software infrastructure. I even sent my best engineers, all for free. Wait, because I thought if I helped him succeed, maybe for once he'd finally see me as more than just the kid with a keyboard. I was wrong, very wrong. I grew up in the shadow of a man who made power look easy. Richard, my father, was a titan in real estate. Cold, calculated, unstoppable. His reputation built on ruthless deals and unapologetic ambition. His home ruled by silence and expectations. In our family, love wasn't spoken. It was traded for achievement. He never said, "I'm proud of you." He said, "What's next?" He never said, "Well done." He said, "You should have done more." By the time I was 12, I'd memorized market trends. By 15, I was building websites. But tech didn't impress him. He saw it as decoration, not substance. Apps are toys, he told me once. We build things that touch the sky. So when I turned down the Ivy League business track to study software engineering, he didn't yell. He just looked me in the eye and said, "Don't expect a seat at my table." I didn't. I built my own. While my peers chased startup funding and hype, I focused on solving real problems. My company built back-end systems for logistics, internal controls, and asset tracking. Nothing glamorous, but it worked. Steady growth, loyal clients, quiet wins. Still, I watched my father from a distance. His empire, expanding his buildings, rising across skylines, and deep down, a part of me still wanted his respect. Not his money, just recognition. That opportunity came when he started a new venture, a $400 million luxury smart city project. Eco towers, intelligent parking, AI-driven energy controls the works. One night over dinner, he asked me, "You still do those back-end things, right? Think your system could manage a project like this?" My chest tightened. That was his version of an olive branch. I told him yes, and I meant it. Over the next 10 months, I dedicated everything to it. My company customized an entire infrastructure, property data management, automated billing tenant. Onboarding predictive maintenance all centralized in one seamless platform. And I didn't charge a dime, not for the code, not for the labor, not even for the training we gave his staff. I saw it as family, as trust, as the moment I'd waited for my whole life. I even invested $1.2 million of my personal savings into the development to support the land acquisition and early construction. I believed in the project, but more than that, I believed in the possibility of something bigger. That for once I could stand beside him, not beneath him. And for a while, I thought I had earned that. He'd introduce me in meetings, ask for my input, let me take the lead on technical decisions. But then came the investor pitch. A major startup from Singapore backed by institutional money was looking to expand into smart urban infrastructure. They were impressed by the software. They wanted to see more. So I prepared the demo. Clean, polished, full live data. They flew in, suits, ties, legal teams. I stood at the front of the room, ready to present. And just as I began, my father interrupted me. Smiling, he said, "This is my son. He's into coding, plays with computers. He helped out on some back-end stuff, but that's not our core value here." I froze. Laughter, awkward glances, some whispers in Mandarin I didn't understand. They asked, "Who developed the current financial data system for the properties?" And without blinking, he replied, "Our parent company. He just helped coordinate some of the modules." I felt like I was watching my own erasure. 3 years of my life, my team, my money, all reduced to some help. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the back-end dashboard, every module, every log, every line of code tied to my company. And one thought wouldn't leave me. If I disappeared today, would anyone in that room even know I was there? The next morning, I made a decision. A quiet one, but irreversible. I shut down my laptop and walked outside. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. They were using me. My father wasn't building a future with me. He was borrowing one until it no longer served him. By morning, I revoked all administrative access to the back-end system. No one noticed yet. But once they tried to run financial projections or pull tenant analytics, they'd hit a wall. I didn't delete anything. I just reminded them who actually built the foundation they were standing on. And then, as if fate wanted to fan the flames, I got a call from Singapore. It was one of the investors from the pitch, Ava Lynn. She didn't waste time. We looked into the platform architecture. "It's impressive. You built this from scratch." I paused. No more lies. No more pretending I was just the coder. Yes, my company owns the full IP, every line of code, every function, even the AI model for asset prediction. Silence on her end. Then, "We'd like to talk without your father." We met 3 days later. They weren't just impressed, they were furious. They had already moved millions into escrow, expecting a full tech stack and support team under the parent real estate firm. Instead, they realized the core software was not owned by the firm at all. "This is a major misrepresentation," Ava said. "Without your software, their whole value chain collapses." I didn't say much. I just slid a printed copy of our software license and IP filings across the table. Everything was registered under my company. Documented, dated, legally bulletproof. You've built more than a system, she told me. You've built infrastructure. Scalable, modular, replicable. You ever think about stepping out on your own? I looked her in the eye. I already have. Meanwhile, back at my father's headquarters, chaos was unfolding. The team couldn't access real-time data. The financial dashboard was frozen. Maintenance alerts weren't syncing with property managers. Tenants couldn't log in. I knew the system inside and out. It was designed to be efficient, but also secure. No one could reverse engineer or bypass the core functions without a proper license. Within 24 hours, I received a furious call from my father. "What the hell did you do?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't curse. I just said, "I protected what's mine." He launched into a rant about contracts, trust, family. "Do you realize you just ruined a $7 million deal?" Ava Lynn pulled out. "They're reviewing their legal options. You embarrassed me in front of my board." I stayed quiet for a beat, then answered, "You embarrassed yourself when you lied about who built the system." Click. Call ended. But the fallout had just begun. Days later, I received an email from the Singapore group. They wanted to partner directly with my company. Not for one project, for 3 major smart property ventures across Southeast Asia. Their legal team worked fast. My company would deploy our platform to manage hotel chains, residential smart homes, and corporate real estate hubs in Kuala Lumpur, Jakarta, and Manila. $12.8 million over 2 years. Full equity retention. My name on every document. But before I signed anything, I did one last thing. I called my father. He didn't pick up, probably out of pride. So I sent him a message. "You always said." I just played with code. Turns out the code is what kept your empire alive. And now, it's what will build mine. 2 days later, a public statement was released. Due to unforeseen technical difficulties, our smart district launch has been delayed indefinitely. My name wasn't mentioned, but for once, I didn't need it to be. The world was starting to see who the architect really was. A week passed. No calls, no emails. Not even a passive-aggressive text from my father, which was unusual. He never stayed silent for this long, not when things were falling apart. But then, he showed up, uninvited. At my company's office, wearing his signature tailored suit, but with a stiffness in his shoulders I'd never seen before. My assistant looked at me confused. I nodded. "Send him in." He walked into my office like he still owned every room he entered. But this time, there was no investor dinner. No boardroom filled with people to impress. Just me, and the silence between us. He didn't sit down. "You think this is revenge?" he said. "You think this little stunt makes you look strong?" I leaned back in my chair. "I didn't do this to look strong. I did it to stop being invisible." He scoffed. "You humiliated me in front of international partners. Do you have any idea what that cost a man like me?" "You mean the truth?" "The truth cost you." Funny. I thought lies were expensive. His eyes flashed. But then came the line, the one that pushed everything over the edge. "You're just a kid with a keyboard. You built some toy. I built an empire. You think you're equal to me." And I stood up, slowly, walked over, and placed a printed document in front of him. "This is the contract. 3-city deployment. Full IP ownership, my company, my name. He read it. His jaw tensed. Ava Lynn gave you this? No. I earned this, because unlike you, I don't take credit for things I didn't build. Then came his outburst, the mask finally shattered. I gave you everything. You wouldn't even exist without me. You're here because I let you be. I didn't flinch. No, I'm here in spite of you. His voice cracked. You think any of this lasts? What happens when the investors get bored? When the market shifts, you don't have what it takes to lead. I looked him dead in the eyes. Maybe I'll fail. But if I do, I'll fail building my own future, not propping up someone else's lie. Silence. His breathing was heavy, his hands trembling, but not with age, with loss. So that's it, he muttered. You're cutting me off. I nodded. No more access. No more system support. And no more using my name like it means nothing. He stepped back like I had punched him. Then, while just before leaving, he said one last thing, low and bitter. One day you'll realize you destroyed your own blood. I didn't answer right away. I waited until he reached the door, then said no. I finally protected mine. He walked out, and I felt the weight lifting. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt. Because no matter how high I'd risen, a part of me still wanted to hear him say, I'm proud of you. But I knew I never would. He wasn't built that way. Later that night, I got an anonymous tip from someone inside his company. They were trying to rebuild the software, hiring outside firms, offering insane amounts of money to recreate my system from scratch. But none of it worked. The code base was too customized, too layered, too smart. Without my team and my architecture, their smart city became a ghost city. The media caught wind, rumors spread. Flagship real estate launch in crisis. Core software system mysteriously pulled. CEO Richard's project under legal scrutiny. And I just kept building, quietly, relentlessly. But I'd be lying again if I said I didn't feel rage. Not just from being dismissed, but from being erased. Even in collapse, he never admitted I was part of the foundation. So one night, I did something petty. I took a screenshot of a social media post, an investor asking, why would a real estate firm fake software ownership? I printed it, framed it, and hung it right above my desk. A reminder that sometimes the loudest revenge is silence, and the most painful defeat is watching someone you underestimated become unreachable. The days after that confrontation were some of the hardest I'd faced. I felt torn between anger, disappointment, and a strange emptiness. It was like I'd broken away from something familiar, but now I was adrift in the unknown. One night alone in my office, I stared at the framed screenshot I'd hung. The silent reminder of the war I'd waged and the family I'd lost. I realized then, this wasn't just about business or even revenge. It was about finding myself. I thought back to every moment I doubted my worth, every dismissive comment, every sideways glance. I'd been so consumed with proving them wrong, I forgot to prove one thing most important, to myself. I reached out to an old mentor, someone outside my family, outside the chaos, who had believed in me from the start. Her name was Mia. She didn't say much during our call, just one question. What do you want, really? It caught me off guard. I expected pep talks or advice. Instead, a simple question, but it held the weight of 1,000 answers. I thought about my father, about Ava Lynn's offer, about the deals, the money, the headlines. And then I thought about me, not the coder, not the CEO, but the person behind the ambition and the pain. I wanted respect, not just from others, from myself. I wanted to build something meaningful, something lasting, not just for the next investor or the next headline, but for me. The next day, I called my executive team into the conference room. I shared everything: the betrayals, the broken trust, and my vision. We're not just selling software, I said. We're building a legacy, a platform that empowers businesses to thrive with integrity. There were nods. There was fire. We brainstormed new features, new markets, and new ways to bring value. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't fighting shadows. I was leading light. But the biggest change came when I stopped waiting for my father's approval. I realized some people will never see your worth, and that's not your burden to carry. I focused on building alliances with people who believed in my vision, not just my bloodline. One morning, I opened an email from Ava Lynn. She wrote, "We're ready to move forward. Your leadership inspires us. Let's make history together." I smiled, not because of the deal, but because I knew I was finally steering my own ship. Months later, at a tech conference in Singapore, I stood on stage and spoke about resilience and vision. I closed with a quote that had become my mantra: "The greatest power lies not in what others see, but in what you refuse to let them erase." As I looked out at the crowd, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. Not because the war was over, but because I had won the battle for myself. Nearly a year had passed since the fallout with my father. I was building a future on my own terms, but the past has a way of catching up. One afternoon, an email popped up in my inbox. The sender, my father. Subject: "Can you help me save the project?" The message was brief. Con, the system is failing. The investors are pulling out. The entire project is at risk. You're the only one who can fix it. For a moment, I froze. Memories of our bitter clashes flooded back: the insults, the betrayals, the silence. I stared at the screen, finger hovering over the keyboard. Then I typed back, "It's not that I won't help. It's that you no longer have the right to ask." I didn't expect a response, but days later, I received a final message. "I'm sorry. I was wrong." That was it. No plea for forgiveness. No promises. Just a simple apology. I didn't reply, because forgiveness isn't about erasing pain. It's about choosing to move forward. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was seeking freedom. Freedom from needing validation. Freedom from toxic ties. Freedom to be my own person. Today, I stand on my own. The software I built is now used across multiple countries, transforming how businesses manage complex operations. The investors who once doubted me are now partners. My father's empire, it's struggling to recover. But this story isn't about him. It's about about how I learned that true strength isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. About standing up even when the people who should love you most try to tear you down. If there's one thing I want you to remember, it's this: don't let anyone define your worth. Not your family, not your past, not even your own fears. Build your future, own your story, and never, ever let anyone else hold the pen. Thank you for listening. If you're going through something similar, remember, you're not alone. And sometimes the hardest battle is the one to reclaim yourself.